Imagine a serene Brazilian hillside, cloaked in the tranquil fog of a late summer afternoon. But on August 18, 1966, this peace was shattered. A young boy, flying a kite, stumbled upon a scene so profoundly bizarre, it would baffle investigators for decades. Two men, well-dressed, lay lifeless on the ground. No signs of struggle, no obvious wounds. Yet, their faces were obscured by homemade lead masks, carefully fashioned, covering only their eyes. Beside them, a mysterious note offered no clarity, only deeper questions. This wasn't a robbery, cash remained in their pockets. This was a puzzle, waiting to be solved. And over half a century later, the pieces still don't fit. The discovery on Vintim Hill, near Rio de Janeiro, initiated an investigation unlike any before. What could compel two men to venture to such a desolate spot, dressed in raincoats on a clear day, wearing heavy lead masks over their eyes? Why were they left with no injuries, no clear cause of death, and a message that seemed to speak in riddles? This case, known globally as the lead masks case, defied conventional explanation from its very first moments. It's a story steeped in mystery, confusion, and a collection of unexplained evidence that continues to challenge our understanding of what happened on that quiet Brazilian hillside. Before they became figures in an international mystery, Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana were ordinary men with ordinary lives. Manuel, 34, and Miguel, 25, were skilled electronics technicians from Campos dos Goitacazes, a city in Rio de Janeiro state. They worked diligently, providing for their families. Miguel was married and a father, while Manuel was saving up to marry his fiancée. Their lives were predictable, grounded in their community and their profession. They were not known to be involved in anything illicit or dangerous, making their eventual fate all the more perplexing. On August 16, 1966, Manuel and Miguel embarked on what seemed like a routine business trip. Their purpose was to travel to Rio de Janeiro to purchase materials for their electronics work. They left Campos dos Goitacazes, a journey of approximately 250 kilometers, or about 155 miles. They told their families they'd return promptly. They boarded a bus, carrying a significant sum of money, intended for their purchases. It was a common occurrence for them, a part of their livelihood. No one suspected this simple errand would lead them to a desolate hilltop and into the annals of unsolved crime. 2 days after they left, the shocking discovery was made on Vintim Hill, a location far from any electronics supply store they might have been visiting. The scene was devoid of any signs of struggle. No broken branches, no overturned earth, no bloodstains. The men lay side by side, almost as if carefully placed. The young boy who found them immediately alerted authorities, setting in motion a bewildering investigation. The initial impression was one of profound disorientation, as if the rules of crime itself had been rewritten on that secluded hillside. Every detail found would only deepen the enigma. The most striking, and perhaps most unsettling, detail was the masks. Both Manuel and Miguel wore thick lead masks covering their eyes. These were not commercially produced items, but appeared to be crudely handmade, cut from sheets of lead. The purpose of these masks became an immediate focal point of the investigation. Were they for protection? A ritual? A macabre joke? Lead is a heavy metal known for blocking radiation, but in this context, it raised more questions than answers. The sheer oddity of the masks seemed to deliberately obscure any simple explanation for their deaths. Adding to the strangeness, both men were found wearing raincoats, despite the fact that the weather on Vintim Hill that day was clear and sunny. This seemingly minor detail suggested a premeditated element, perhaps a need for disguise or protection from something other than rain. Furthermore, their wallets contained their full wages and the significant sum of money they intended for their purchases, completely ruling out robbery as a motive. The presence of cash suggested either a non-criminal intent, or a very specific, targeted action that didn't involve material gain. Each item found contradicted expectations. Beside their bodies, investigators discovered a small piece of paper with a handwritten note. It contained baffling instructions: for 30 p.m. be at the agreed place. 6:30 p.m. swallow capsule. After effect, protect metals waiting for mask. This agreed place was likely Vintam Hill. The mention of a capsule hinted at ingestion, perhaps a drug or poison. And the command to protect metals waiting for mask was utterly bewildering. What metals? What kind of protection? And why waiting for mask when the masks were already on them? The note, far from clarifying, only deepened the sinister undertones of the discovery, suggesting a planned, ritualistic, or scientific event gone terribly wrong. Beyond the masks and note, other items at the scene contributed to the overall bizarre picture. A water bottle was found nearby, suggesting the men might have been hydrating or preparing for an extended stay. A small towel was also present, its purpose unknown. These seemingly mundane objects took on an ominous quality in such an extraordinary context. Were they part of a purification ritual? Tools for an experiment? Or simply items they carried without special significance, further complicating efforts to decipher their final moments? The absence of common survival gear like food or camping equipment made the presence of these few items stand out. When the police arrived, they were faced with an unprecedented scene. The lack of conventional evidence immediately stumped the investigators. There was no struggle, no weapon, no indication of violence. This wasn't a typical murder or a robbery gone wrong. The area was not cordoned off effectively at first, leading to some contamination of the scene by curious onlookers and unauthorized personnel. This oversight would later hamper efforts to gather pristine forensic evidence, a common challenge in early forensic science but particularly damaging in a case so dependent on minute details and preserving context. The autopsies, which are medical examinations of a body to determine the cause of death, were performed on both Manuel and Miguel. The results only deepened the mystery. There were no external injuries, no bullet wounds, no stab marks, no signs of blunt force trauma. Internally, their organs appeared undamaged, a finding that ruled out many common causes of death. However, toxicology reports revealed trace amounts of phosphorus in their tissues. Phosphorus, a chemical element, can be highly toxic, but the amount detected was not immediately conclusive as a fatal dose. This finding, while significant, couldn't definitively explain how they died, leaving the cause of death officially undetermined. Adding to the frustration of investigators was the discovery that some key evidence was missing from the scene. Notably, a small notebook that Miguel always carried, which presumably contained his notes and contacts, was nowhere to be found. This notebook could have held vital clues about their intentions, appointments, or even the nature of their experiment or meeting. Its absence suggested a deliberate removal, potentially by someone who knew its significance, or perhaps by the men themselves before their deaths. Without it, a crucial piece of the puzzle remained elusive, preventing investigators from tracing their last known activities. The young boy who discovered the bodies, a local resident, was the primary witness. His testimony was crucial in establishing the initial timeline and the undisturbed nature of the scene. He described seeing the two men lying there, the masks, the raincoats, and the general stillness. While children's accounts can sometimes be inconsistent, his story was corroborated by the physical evidence, solidifying the initial understanding of the discovery. However, beyond the basic facts of finding the bodies, he had no further information that could shed light on what transpired leading up to that moment, leaving the how and why unanswered. One of the leading theories revolves around the men's profession as electronics technicians and the lead masks. It's speculated that Manuel and Miguel were involved in some kind of scientific experiment, perhaps related to radiation or an unknown energy source. The lead masks could have been intended as protection, and the cryptic notes mention of protect metals might refer to materials used in their work. The capsule could have been a part of this experiment, perhaps a chemical or a substance designed to achieve a certain effect. This theory finds support in their expertise and the unusual gear, but it lacks a clear explanation for what kind of experiment could result in their peaceful, injury-free deaths. A more sensational, yet widely popular theory, suggests extraterrestrial involvement. The lead masks, designed to block radiation, have been interpreted by some as protection against a non-human entity or technology. The mysterious circumstances, the lack of conventional injuries, and the cryptic note are all seen as hallmarks of a UFO encounter. This theory gained traction in the local folklore, fueled by the sheer strangeness of the case. While compelling for its otherworldly narrative, there is no concrete evidence, no sightings, no debris, to substantiate claims of UFOs. It remains a captivating but largely speculative explanation. Another theory posits that the deaths were part of a spiritual ritual or linked to a mysterious cult. The agreed place, the capsule, and the protect metals note could be interpreted as elements of a ritualistic ceremony. The masks themselves might have symbolic meaning, perhaps to obscure the gaze of deities or spirits. Brazil has a rich history of diverse spiritual practices, some of which involve unique rituals. However, no specific cult or group was ever definitively linked to the men or the site. This theory, like the others, relies heavily on interpretation rather than direct evidence, leaving many questions about the motive and participants. Given the trace amounts of phosphorus found, poisoning remains a plausible, albeit complicated, theory. The swallow capsule instruction directly points to ingestion. Perhaps the men were compelled to take a slow-acting poison, or they willingly participated in something they didn't fully understand. However, the lack of a definitive fatal dose and the absence of struggle make a forced poisoning or assassination scenario difficult to reconcile. If it was an assassination, why the masks, the raincoats, and the cryptic note? These details don't align with a straightforward murder, suggesting a more elaborate and perplexing motive. Despite intensive investigation, police interviews with family, friends, and colleagues yielded no definitive answers. The case grew cold, leaving a legacy of confusion and unanswered questions. The lead masks case is a testament to the fact that not all mysteries can be neatly solved. It stands as a chilling reminder of how even with forensic evidence and witness accounts, some events simply defy logical explanation, leaving investigators, historians, and true crime enthusiasts to endlessly speculate. The truth, if it exists in a conventional sense, remains buried on that quiet Brazilian hillside. So, what are we left with? Two well-dressed men, found dead on a remote Brazilian hillside. No visible injuries, no signs of struggle, and not a single item stolen. Their faces were covered by strange, homemade lead masks. Beside them, a mysterious note offered cryptic instructions rather than clarity. The investigation found trace phosphorus, but no definitive cause of death. Despite decades of scrutiny and countless theories, the core facts remain stubbornly unexplained. The men found wearing lead masks. The cryptic note. The lack of violence. The unanswered questions. The lead masks case remains one of the strangest unsolved mysteries in modern history. The case of the lead masks continues to intrigue and puzzle. Was it a failed scientific experiment? An otherworldly encounter? A ritualistic suicide, or perhaps a clandestine assassination disguised as something stranger? We may never know the full truth. But the enduring power of mysteries like this lies in our collective attempt to understand the incomprehensible. What do you think happened on Vintam Hill? Share your theories, insights, and any facts you've uncovered in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going, because sometimes even the most baffling puzzles can be illuminated by a new perspective.